Я бы хотел предоставить слово господину Эско Ахо, премьер-министру Финляндии в 91-95 годах. Два слова на периоде 91 года, начала 90-х годов. Период распада империи, Советского Союза, страны, с которой у Финляндии были не просто тесные отношения, а для которой Советский Союз был ключевым партнером, и стране пришлось перестраиваться. Но перестроилась Финляндия настолько быстро, что это, в общем, удивляло. Что было сделано, какова роль государства в этой трансформации и за счет чего удалось достичь успеха?
First, Sergey, I have to ask how many minutes do I have? Long story or short story or medium?
Not so long.
Not so long. But anyway, I will start with a bit theoretical approach. Why governments and nations and companies sometimes face crises? Is there any general rule for that? And I have seen crises both on the private and the public sector. And my experience is that the reason for the crisis is rather simple always, the same on both sides. And the reason is that your concept and the context where you operate in are in imbalance. If there is a balance, everything goes fine. You can make profit in a company, you can grow as a nation, you can create prosperity, but as soon as there is an imbalance, you will find yourself in crisis. And you have two ways to get out of the crisis, or strategies to try to get out of the crisis. First one is to wait and see until the context will be improved. I'm not going to recommend to use that strategy for any company or any nation, because that will never work. Second option is that you think that context will be changed into the direction which will be again in line with our concept. Not a good strategy. The third option is that you start to change your own concept in a way that it will be in line with the context, not today's context, but especially for the context of the future. And I think that is the critical thing for strategies, national strategies and business strategies. And why Finland succeeded? You said that we were dependent on the Soviet trade. That's true, but even more importantly, the old concept was that Finland wanted to become an industrialized nation. And we did it. We were very, very successful in that as well. But that story was at the end, already in the 1970s, we recognized that now this concept is not going to work anymore as well as before. And Finland started to move to the next concept already early 1980s, 10 years before we faced the crisis. We decided that we will invest much more in R&D. We were below the OECD average on the level of 1% of GDP 1980, and we decided that we will double that investment in 10 years. And if you look at the figures, 1990 we reached the level of 2%. We did exactly what we promised to do. Secondly, we opened the collaboration between universities and business. That was almost excluded earlier, but we made it possible, and we expanded resources for universities as well to collaborate with companies. Not saying what you should do, but opening doors for strategic partnership between business and universities. For the third, we opened the markets. We believe that we are that our companies, when they are forced to compete, they will be much better on the long term. On the short term, it's painful, it creates problems, but on the longer term, it will be good for companies. They learn to swim when they are in water. For the fourth, we deregulated our markets so that we removed obstacles for companies to come to the market and to operate in the market. Telecom sector is best example. If you want to ask me why Nokia was able to become leading mobile phone company in the world so rapidly, the reason is that we were the country in Europe among the three first countries in Europe to open the market for competition, against the will of Nokia itself. Nokia didn't like the idea originally, but government decided we want to have an open access to the market and competition, and that worked. So these are the things Finland did, and when the crisis hit, crisis is bad or good, but in our case it was good, because in the middle of the crisis we were able to move resources from the old to the new. It's not that easy, because there are a lot of forces in the middle of crisis who are saying, no, we have to keep our resources where they are and to protect our positions. But we, luckily, were able to make just the opposite. We encouraged resources to be moved from the traditional sectors to new sectors. And that's why in 1990s you saw that miracle in Finland. Nokia was driving that, but all other companies did roughly the same. They were leaving old sectors, they were leaving resources spent into old areas, and they were moving these resources for more productive sectors. And finally, why this was possible in a small country? I think there are two reasons. Small is beautiful. When you want to make a radical change, it's easier to be done in a small society or even in a small company than in a big one. So there is certain flexibility. And in a small society, you don't expect that the world is going to be like we want it to be. But it's easier to understand. The world is what it is, and we have to survive in those circumstances. And secondly, we had well-educated population. We had people who had capacities urgently needed. Education, education, education. That has been an integral part of the success story of Finland. Right, this was the medium story. Thank you.